There is a pretty high chance right now that you are spending a lot of time working from home. From the beginning of the time that coronavirus hit, the usual script of family life was entirely rewritten. And that probably means all the rules around screen time too. Now, experts tell us that it's fine to be more flexible about the time your kids are spending online right now, providing you're using effective parental controls and protecting them from digital risks and stopping them from using devices in the bedroom. But how's that been going in your household? And aside from your kids, what kind of screen time are you clocking up these days with all that Zoom and Netflix time and checking through Twitter, Facebook and Instagram? And is all screen time the same anyway? We need to talk about screen time now. This video is all about how much screen time is too much screen time and whether we should also be thinking about the type of screen time we're clocking up to. First, let me start off talking about kids and teens, but I'll also be sharing some helpful stuff for adults too, so make sure you watch through to the end. Where do we get the idea that screen time is a bad thing and that this needs to be limited? Well, we get our screen time recommendations from a variety of sources. These include the World Health Organization, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the Australian Department of Health, for example. And these guidelines are actually pretty similar and overlap in a number of ways. All of them say that children aged 2 to 5 probably shouldn't have more screen time than about an hour a day, ideally watching with an adult. Guidelines for school-aged children are looser. There's not much in the recommendations of time per day. It depends on the lifestyle of the child, and it's largely left for the adults to figure this out. So, how do those recommendations compare to how screen time looks in your family right now, or at least for the past few weeks? Some people are perhaps now getting to a point where they're noticing how much time that we're really spending in front of screens, and they're not happy about it. But the reality is that screen time is really important for them to be able to get on, for them to do their work themselves in front of a screen, and also as a tool to help keep their kids occupied. You might feel like this too. So what can you do if faced with this dilemma? Because in coronavirus times, the screen time playbook has definitely gone out of the window. It's probably best if we start to break down screen time a bit, because actually not all screen time is the same. What's the specific screen activity we or our kids are engaged in? Are we passively scrolling and looking at pictures, or are we commenting and posting? How long and how often are we on the screen? Because there's so much to disentangle, the research is kind of all over the place, lumping together apples with oranges. If we start to really dig into the recommendations, then there are probably 3 factors that underpin healthy technology use for children, and it's probably a useful guide for adults too, for that matter. First, the time you spend using a screen. Second, the quality of the screen content. And third, who you use a screen with. The connection between screen time and health definitely seems to get a bit clearer when you look at how people are using their screens. It's not just about quantity, it's also about the quality. Passive screen time, things like watching TV or scrolling through your Instagram feed, is usually associated with the negative things like depression, moodiness, anxiety, and physical inactivity. Active screen time, stuff that engages you physically or cognitively, can actually be helpful. Screens also allow us to stay connected with people, with technology like FaceTime and Zoom used wisely and not all the time. Now sure, some people have to deal with feeling overwhelmed because of drama, the trolls, or feeling pressure to only post a highlight reel of themselves to make themselves look good to others. But in many studies, a majority of teens say that social media mainly helps the relationships they already have with their friends. And when you look at things like multiplayer video games, Twitch streams, or Reddit, being online allows you to perhaps find your tribe. If you don't quite fit in with where you live, or you live in a small or isolated community, quality screen time might be essential to keeping you well. The benefits on children's health, well-being, social and emotional outcomes, and their school achievement too depends less on time and more on the type of content they engage with when using a screen. The best scenario is when the screen content is interactive. It's educational without too many bells and whistles to bait you into using it, but the experience actually encourages children to persevere with a problem, and it's age appropriate too. And watch out for those in-app purchases that not only hit you in the purse or wallet, but also encourage your child to take the shortcut to finding a solution without putting the effort in. Co-viewing is also something to think about. This is when a child uses a screen with a parent who can explain ideas to them. People tend to use the term co-engaging when talking about older children, which just means using a screen with someone equally as engaged, not just passively in the same room or explaining what's going on. So this might be when you're playing an online game with a parent or someone else, or taking part in a virtual study group on Skype perhaps. So for kids and teens, healthy screen use is all about balancing these three factors: time, quality, and relationships. So if you suspect or know that your child may have fallen into using screens for longer periods because of all the changes in these coronavirus times, then make sure your screen quality and screen relationships are all taken care of. Here's how. Set up a time to engage with screen activity with your child that's more than just watching on as a bystander and checking the apps and games your child uses. Then try to find quality educational experiences for your child online. Make sure that they hit the targets for educational, interactive, and age appropriateness. Don't just settle for something that says it's educational on the tin. Check underneath the hood to make sure it qualifies as a great educational experience. I've put some ideas for you in the description for this video. So what about adults? What does your screen time look like now compared to what you were doing before the coronavirus hit? You may well be doing a lot more Zoom or other video conferencing calls. And you might also be watching a lot more TV, Netflix, that kind of thing, as well as spending time on social media and other apps. Let's just take me today this morning. It's only 11:30 a.m. and I've already spent 3 hours in front of a screen. So that's a lot, right? Over 50% of the time since I've been awake. But what has that time consisted of? Well, almost 2 hours of that time is listed as creative when I look at the breakdown, because I've spent a lot of time in YouTube Studio this morning setting up this video and also doing my research, which accounts for most of the last hour using apps to help me write and get my thoughts together. And for the other 40 minutes or so, I have been checking in on Twitter, Facebook, and news sites, as well as catching up on email and other things. So yes, not all screen time for me is the same, but add it all up together and it's quite a lot of time. Another thing to remember is, with all this time in front of the screen, what were you doing instead before coronavirus times hit? How were you doing your work or spending your time? Has it changed much? And was that because it had to? And I'm sure that's the case for lots of people. But does it need to stay like that now? With all the screen time you're spending, what could you be doing that you're not doing? What are you possibly missing out on? What I mean is, don't feel like you should be beating yourself up here, either with your own screen time or for your kids. But perhaps this is a window where you can get some insight into your habits that might have become a bit stuck over the past few weeks, and to be a bit more intentional, deciding if you're fine with it carrying on like this for some more time, or whether you might want to make a shift towards a different pattern of screen use and screen time too, and who you're doing this with. So what do you think? What screen activities do you value and what do you want to cut out? Let me know in the comments below. And check out my video on Zoomitis or Zoom fatigue if you're having to use video calling a lot in your life right now. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this useful. Please share this video with your friends and family if you have. My name's Saab Johal and good night.